down to earth. Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
Thank you. How beautiful. You know, we seek to have out-of-body experiences as part of our spiritual journey, and then when somebody has a permanent out-of-body experiences, we get all sad and grievy. And yet they're just... I remember a Zen master who one time was on his deathbed, and his disciples, his students were around him grieving, and he said, "Why are you grieving? Where do you think I'm going?" There's just here. There's just here. There's all these different dimensions, as Mary talked about in string theory. There's these different aspects and ways of being here. But we're all here. Our talk today is on, we're working this whole year on the title of this book and the meaning of this book, which is Creating a World That Works for All. And those of you who were here last Sunday know that there's well over 100 religious science churches around the world who are all collectively working on this idea. How to create a world, how to contemplate, how to be the place where a world that works for all begins to be birthed through us. And so we're sitting with that consciousness, knowing that wherever two or more are gathered, in this case wherever a couple thousand or more are gathered, with the same idea, there's a greater power and a greater presence that works through us. So we are holding that consciousness to start to plant the seeds, to start this journey. And we may not know exactly where we're going or the finished process of what it looks like, but we're starting the journey anyways. And asking that question, how can we live and create a world that works for all, far better than it has? And so the theme that we're looking at today is suffer no more. And I love that wonderful quote from Ernest Holmes: "The world has learned all it should through suffering and pain." Isn't that the truth? We don't need to suffer anymore. In Science of Mind, we teach that suffering equals resistance. If I'm in suffering, I'm in resistance to what is. I'm in resistance to the law. I'm in resistance to being present with the truth of my being. Okay? And what I want to say is, because always when we talk about this from a religious science point of view, people will ask, yes, but what about children? What about this group of people over here that's suffering because of nothing they did? Are you saying that this child created their own suffering with their own consciousness? And the answer is no, we're not. As we grow in awareness, as we grow in human and spiritual maturity, we begin to learn how to take greater and greater charge of our lives. But we've all been through, because we all started as embryos and we all started as small children, we've all been through a period where we were powerless. We've all had that experience on the human level. Okay? And we haven't known how to access necessarily the power that we have. When you're a little kid and your parents are saying, it's my way because I pay the rent or the mortgage on the house, and until you do, you're going to do it my way. Okay? We don't have a whole lot of saying, well, that's too bad. I'm going to get rich and move out real quick. Okay? And so there's a time that oftentimes we do have to go through the suffering period, because suffering occurs when we're out of alignment with the law, and it doesn't necessarily have to be us who's out of alignment with it. It can be when other people are out of alignment with it. So we have people who are unaware. We have people who are operating out of fear or hurt. We have people who are greedy. We have people who are operating in all sorts of ways out of it, imposing their will on other people who don't yet know how to stand up and gain power and stand in their power. A spiritual teaching out of this would be that we are all learning how to stand in our power more and more fully out of this process. Because most of us won't learn to stand in our power until finally somebody ticks us off enough Do we say, you know what, no more of that? And we're doing that collectively in the world. We've seen where some of our power leaders have taken us over and over and over and over again. And enough of us are finally standing up and saying, no more. This past week I watched the new Star Wars movie. And I'm not going to give too much away, but there's a character in the movie who, in the process of someone else trying to impose their will upon her, learns how to move into her own power. Those of you who've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, I presume. And learns how to work with that power. But it is not until this other person is trying to impose their will upon her that it awakens that power. I remember years ago when I lived in Los Angeles, I was walking through an area where there had just been a very devastating fire. It was the Keenan and Doom fire of the late 80s. And I was walking through doing photography, and I was with the Sierra Club and doing some photography to document it. And 6 months later, I came back to the same area with a naturalist and doing photography to see what the difference was 6 months later. And when I first went through, the ground was still so warm that it actually melted my boots. It was kind of a little, thing to think about afterwards. But I was, 20-something, and you can live forever with then. And what the naturalist pointed out was all the vegetation that was growing. And he said there are certain seeds that only grow when a fire comes through. Okay? There's seeds within us that only grow when a fire comes through. And we call that fire sometimes suffering, and on one level it looks like suffering, but the end result is that we stand up and become stronger. So I want to look at suffering from a little different perspective today. First of all, suffering is not natural in terms of it's not God ordained. Ernest says that to suppose that the creative intelligence of the universe would create man in bondage and leave him bound would be to dishonor the creative power which we call God. When I was in Catholic grade school growing up, I could never get this idea that God is love and is sending all these people to hell who've never heard of his son Jesus. It just didn't sit right. How could that which is love, all loving, send these babies, because they lived in outer Mongolia and had never had a missionary visit them, to hell for all of eternity just because? Did that compute with anybody? Did anybody else have that question? Yeah. There's a part within us that sits there and goes, we know God's love. I call it our inner mystic. It's that where we really, really, really do know how God is and what God is. It's that part of us that gets activated when we finally walk into a New Thought church for the first time, and we sit there and cry or have this, oh my God, I'm at home, or I never knew there was other people who believed the same way that I believe feeling, okay? And so because we start to talk the truth, we start to tell us that. Many of us out of that conditioning were taught that suffering is a virtue. I grew up reading The Lives of the Saints, which is a three-volume version of all the saints that were in the Catholic Church at that time. Guess which were the best saints? Martyrs. The martyrs. And the best martyrs were the ones who suffered the most. I grew up in a tradition where, the priests and the nuns, a while back, not all that long ago, in fact, some of them still do to this day, rolling glass or self-flagellate themselves in order to suffer for Jesus. Okay? Because suffering is good. Yeah, no. The ones that suffered and died for their faith were the best. Bunk. Or as I like to say, BS, which stands for belief system. It's a belief system. There's a story of a man who dies. I've told this story before, but there's a story of a man who dies, goes to hell, wakes up, finds himself in a kind of a okay motel, not great, just an okay motel, and he's there, and he wakes up in the morning, he looks around, he goes, oh, this isn't so bad. This isn't quite what I was expecting. And so he finds clean towels and a shower, takes a shower, finds clean clothes and puts them on, walks out the door, and there's Satan sitting in a golf cart waiting for him. And he says, hey, you're new here, let me show you around. And so Satan, he hops in the golf cart, and Satan shows him around and shows him where the community pool is and the community golf course is. And the guy kind of looks at him and he says, this isn't quite what I thought, what I've heard described. He says, how is this different than heaven? He says, well, heaven, the accommodations are nicer, the clothes are a little nicer, there's more golf courses, more pools, so you don't have to wait for tea time and like that. And they're cruising around, and he comes around the corner, and here's this lake of fire with suffering, screaming souls in it. He says, and this is the Catholic section, they wanted it this way. Suffering is not God ordained. It happens for two reasons, and they're both really aspects of the same reason. First of all, we believe we're supposed to or we have to. A whole lot of us got taught you got to suffer in this life to get a better life in the by and by in the sky when you die. Okay? Not true. And then secondly, we, or somebody that we don't yet have power over, misuses the law and applies it to us. Applies that misuse to us, and we're stuck with that. And so what we're here to learn today is how to use the law more wisely and what that law is. Ernest Holmes teaches us that evolution is ever forward. We're always moving forward. Whatever your life is right now, it's over. And now it's over again. And now it's over again. That moment is gone, that moment is gone, that moment is gone. Okay? I was listening last night to a song from a friend of mine, Amy Steinberg, called Memory of Starshine. And we think when we look up in the night, we're looking at the stars. We're not. We're looking at the memory of what they were 400, 500 million years ago or longer ago. They could have ended and we wouldn't even know it. Even the sun is, about 6 minutes, I think, off from the time that it takes that much time. It takes a certain amount of time for the light of the sun to travel to the earth. The sun just ended, by the way, and we have 6 more minutes to live. No, I'm just teasing. But we're looking at something that looks real to us, looks present to us, but isn't. Okay? And evolution is ever forward. Are we willing to move off of our comfort zone of hanging on to and clinging? Because that's part of violating the law. When I try and hang on and cling to what I have, I'm in violation of the law because the law is always for growth and expression and expansion and moving forward. There's that old saying, if we're not growing, we're dying. If we're not growing, we're dying. Now, it doesn't have to be some big, high drama. A lot of us in spiritual, practices think, oh my God, that means another, deep, painful suffering. No, it doesn't have to be. If you're constantly in a state of growth, if you're constantly opening up your consciousness and paying attention, you're just on a general, gentle, incline as you go through life, expanding and expressing. It's only when we try to hang on to it, scientists in evolution call it punctuated equilibrium. Plateau, 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 change. That is dramatic. We're kind of looking at that right now as a community as a human race on our planetary stuff because of the climate change that's coming. We've known for 100 years at least that we need to clean up how what we dump into the planet. I remember in the 60s when I was a kid, they were talking about that, right? Did we change it? Well, a little bit, yes, but not enough, obviously. Okay? Do we pay attention? Do we grow? The law is always working, whether we're aware of it or not. The law is always working. And the law is what you put out returns. What you put out comes back to you. It's the law of cause and effect. Every spiritual teacher has talked about that. And just like gravity works whether we're aware of it or not, the law is always working whether we're aware of it or not. Ernest says that if we talk about discord, we shall become more discordant. The more the world arms for war, the more certain it is there will be war. People who spend all their time talking about their unhappiness become more unhappy. And so how do we use the law? How do we use the law? What is it? And it's not just when we're having a good day and we're sitting in church and feeling good. It's those little dark moments. It's that little chatter. It's that underlying current that says, I'm not good enough. Who do you think you are? I expect this not to work out. Why bother? The universe is going to pull the carpet out from under me anyways. Some of you know those voices. It's that stuff. And that stuff is our unconscious working and working and working away. And until we shine a light on it and look it straight in the face and say, you know what? I no longer give you the power to run my life. It continues to run our lives. The first place for us to take our power back is within ourselves. In the Hindu tradition, a bodhisattva learns how to free himself or herself from the illusion, from the Maya. Okay? And then is able to help others. We get this basic lesson on an airplane every time we fly. If an oxygen mask pops down, where do you put the mask? On yourself first, and then you assist others. Because if you're running around trying to assist others, you're going to be toast pretty fast and not be of very much assistance. So you take care of yourself, and you take care of getting yourself healthy first. Okay? And so that's our call. That's what we're working on here, is first to check our own consciousness. How are we using the law? Are we open to growth? Are we open to being in that alignment? Yes. What are we creating in our own consciousness? When we're looking at war, and war is not just what those people out there are doing, because war exists within each of us, right? Each of us have somewhere within us some conflict going on. Word. Eleanor Roosevelt asked the question, when will our consciousness grow so tender that we will act to prevent human misery instead of avenge it? We will act to prevent human misery instead of avenge it. Will we do that with ourselves? Yes. Sharif Abdullah, who wrote this book, says compassion is the tool that's going to transform the world. Not bombs, not tanks, not protests, not signatures, not letter writing campaigns to legislators. Compassion is the tool that will change the world. Compassion is love. It's a form of love, and it's the expression of love. And we know, and what we teach, is that God is love. I love that. You know, Reverend Mary got up in her prayer, talked about God is one. There's only one life. And as we remember that, that one life is love, and we remember that and speak it over and over again, we deepen with it every single time. God is love, and I am love, because I'm one with God. When we live with and as compassion, we begin to align with the nature of the universe. If you want to be in alignment with the law of the universe, practice love. It's very simple. Practice love. Love for myself, love for others. The teacher Jesus taught that when they asked him, what's the most important law? And if you know Jewish law back in his day, you know, they had Leviticus, and they had Numbers, and they had Deuteronomy, and they had all these. I mean, there's like 1,000 laws, okay? They were all and some of them in conflict with the others that they were supposed to observe, you know. And they said, which is the most important law? And he says, there's two. And they're basically both the same. Number one, love God completely. And where is God? Within us and all around us. Within us and all around us. Am I willing to love the God within me and the God all around me completely, fully, with all my heart, all my being? And he said the second is like unto the first. That should be a clue. It's like unto the first. In fact, it's the same as the first. Love your neighbor as yourself, because you and your neighbor are the same person. Not as much as yourself, not in the same way as yourself, but as yourself. Because there's only one of us. There's only one of us. When I'm pointing my finger out and judging my neighbor or criticizing my neighbor, I'm really judging and criticizing myself. Ouch. There's that old thing that when we point a finger out, we've got three pointed back to us. When I catch myself, which isn't always, but when I catch myself with that finger pointed out, I start looking at those three pointed back and say, what are those three things? I'm going to invite you today to take home a sheet of paper that's going to help you with doing a process that is based on that proverb to help us to undo some of the judgment we've been experiencing. Because one of the things that takes us quickly out of love and compassion is judging. And And when I start judging another person, I start dehumanizing them, I start de-spiritualizing them, and I don't see them as a human being anymore, and then I can do stuff in my own mind. Because they're not really me. They and I are separate, and I can dump on them all I want to. And eventually, we're making war with them. We're stealing from them. We're refusing them sanctuary in our home. We're doing all sorts of stuff because we can. One of the ways that the Cold War between the United States and Russia ended was that American people and Russian people started meeting each other and finding out that they were human beings just like each other. And finding out that each was just as scared of the other, and finding out that most of them were just as dissatisfied with their leaders and how they were running things. And suddenly we humanized, and we could no longer think about dropping nuclear bombs on these friends we had over in Russia or America. And suddenly we weren't making war with them anymore. When we start to realize, when we start to take back the humanity and the awareness of the humanity of that person that we have separated out from us, we start to open up to and see them for who they are, ourselves. And when we start to reclaim the parts of ourselves that we have dehumanized, because we all have a list, don't we, of parts of ourselves that I really don't like that part. I'm just going to shut that one away in a closet and not talk about it. In our intentions retreat this weekend, we did a process of releasing, of looking at that. Who do I still blame, and what do I still feel ashamed about, and what regrets do I still have? And pulling that out and getting rid of it. So it's taking that list that we all have about ourselves as well as other people. Because oftentimes the person we've made war on the most is our own self. Different aspects of ourselves. Well, if only I wasn't so. If only I could just. I wish I was. I wish I wasn't. And so out of that we suffer. So one of the ways to move out of judgment is to start to pay attention to whom and why we judge. Who do we judge? And why do we judge them? To shine lights on the dark corners of our consciousness. Rumi says, why are you knocking at every other door? Go knock on the door of your own heart. Why are you knocking on every other door? Go knock on the door of your own heart. So I want to invite us this week. There's a sheet of paper at the back that the ushers have. And it's a worksheet by Byron Katie, who does a wonderful process called the Work. That's the name of her process. And it really is, this is the thing that is the application of that. If I've got a finger pointed out, I've got three pointed back at me. And it will help us to look at and become aware of who and where we're judging and start to turn it around. Would that be valuable to you? Yes. Yeah. So what I'm going to invite you to do is on the way out to take one of these sheets, and I'm going to set up kind of back right around in that area there and go through it for if anybody wants some guidance. It kind of is self-explanatory, but there might be a little bit of nuance to it that might be good to talk about if you want to. So I'll do a little mini, quick 5-minute, just how to walk through this worksheet and work with it yourself. I had a couple of people from the first service that I'm going to make about 10 copies of this because I need it. And so it's a very powerful way to work through this. It's called the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. It doesn't help you become better at judging your neighbor. It helps you to start to undo that process. So I would invite you to take one of those sheets and be willing to play with it this week. And so we begin to look at how we judge, and then we begin to turn it around to free us. So we can be free of that. How many of you would like to be free of that judging? Okay. Because it cripples us. It cripples us when we judge another, and it cripples us when we judge ourselves. And it's one of the best things that we can do to start to create a world that works for everyone, is to stop judging. What I want to say about it is it's going to take courage to do this. And it's not necessarily going to be comfortable. So if you want to just stay comfortable, you can. Just don't pick up that sheet, don't look at it, don't think about it. But as one of my old teachers used to say, comfort kills. Something to think about. Comfort kills. Comfort keeps us stuck in our own, where we are. Harry Emerson Fosdick, who was a fabulous minister, in the mid-40s in New York City, had what I call a New Thought Baptist church. And he had people, everything from the Rockefeller family to homeless people, all in the same service. How was that for a convolution? And he said the role of a minister is twofold. One is to comfort the afflicted, and the other is to afflict the comfortable. And I love that. Because we all have our areas where we're comfortable. And if we want to grow and become greater spiritual beings, if we want to become greater livers of people on this planet, lovers of people on this planet, we have to get outside of our comfort zone. And sometimes that takes a little affliction, a little nudge, that little, we don't stand up and use our power until somebody invites us to it. I love Mary's class that she's teaching, the gifts of imperfection. And so it takes looking at the imperfection and allowing it to rub us and to work with us into our new who we truly are, and to stop seeing it as an imperfection. So the question is, do you want to really become involved in creating a world that works for everyone? This is where the rubber meets the road. Will I pick up a worksheet? Will I start to actually do something with it? And so I invite you to do that. So this week, 3 practices, which will include this. Number 1, notice where you have believed in suffering. Notice where you have believed in suffering. Nothing's worth doing unless it's hard, right? Okay? I got to earn my living through blood, sweat, and tears. Hard work. A lot of us men grew up with that, right? It takes hard work to earn a living. If you got rich quickly and easily, it's not worth it. You're not worth anything. You're not a man. Anybody resonate? Yeah? Okay. Number 2, notice where you experience suffering by being out of alignment with the law. And some of us notice that we have this period where we're out of alignment over and over and over and over again. Anybody besides me? Yeah. If you're noticing that, you might want to see one of our practitioners and get a little bit of help from somebody who can give you a different perspective on it. That's what they're trained for. And I don't even mean just a little 5-minute, time with them up here after the service, but I mean set up an appointment, set up a session to where we grow with that. I make sure that I have a session with my practitioner every month, once a month, because I need it. And I know where I suffer, and I do experience suffering, and so I try to move into alignment. So notice we experience that suffering by being out of alignment, and start to bring yourself back in. And then finally, number 3, be willing to practice love and compassion this week. Would you be willing to look at every single person you meet this week as God informed? We kind of did this last week, with love and with compassion. Yourself included. Ooh, that person in the mirror? Louise Hay, I love it, gives this exercise, this practice of take off all your clothes and look at yourself full body in a full-length mirror and say, I love you. And that's usually where most people kind of close up the book and say, well, that was a good book. So are we willing to love ourselves? Are we willing to practice that love for ourselves? So those are the 3 things. Notice where we believed in suffering. Notice where we experience suffering by being out of alignment with the law. And finally, be willing to practice love and compassion. Are you good with that? Yes. Great, thank you. I'm going to close with a quote from Ernest. Man must be created with a possibility of limitless freedom and let alone to discover himself. On the road to self-discovery, he must be subject to the law of reality. And if in ignorance he violates the law, he must thereby suffer. This is not, however, because any divine doctrine ordains suffering, but simply it is the necessity of the case. It is the result of not following the law. God never intended man to suffer. God has no agenda for any of us to suffer. I invite you that if you have an agenda somewhere, either by thinking you should or by just being unaware of the law, get that out of there and get free of suffering. Let's move into prayer. So I know that, again, there is only one life. There's only one life. That life is love. Pure, powerful, deep love. That life is all there is. That love is all there is. That order and harmony that comes out of the divine intelligence is all there is. The beauty that comes out of that one life is all there is. And because that is so, I know that each of us have to be one of that infinite presence, because there's nowhere else to be. There's nothing that exists outside of the infinite. And so we ourselves, therefore, it is our nature that we ourselves are the love, beauty, and intelligence of the universe. That is who we are. No matter what we've ever done, no matter what we've ever believed, whether we remember or forget, it is the truth of who we are. I am the love, beauty, and intelligence of the universe. Is the truth of each of us. And so I speak my word that this week we deepen in that awareness, deepen in that knowing, deepen in the expression of that, both towards ourselves and towards the rest of the world, towards everything else. That where we've used our judgment in the past, we drop the judgment. And we look and say, I am willing to see that person as God. Even if they still irritate me, I'm still willing to see that person as God. I'm willing to recognize that is God at work. The person may be in complete violation of the law, and yet they're still God in form. I'm willing to see myself as God in form. No matter how many times I violate the law, no matter how many times I irritate myself, I'm still willing to recognize that I am one of God. I'm willing to release any idea of suffering, any experience of suffering. I have learned enough from that. And so I'm grateful for each and every person who joins in this process, who joins in this awareness, who joins in this expression of love, compassion, beauty, wisdom in this world. Knowing that it blesses that person and it blesses all of us. As each of us awaken, as each of us arise in consciousness, we are all blessed. And so in that consciousness of gratitude, I release this word into a law that moves it into form and expression. Right here and right now, within us, all around us, it knows how to do that work. We simply let it be. We make it welcome. We do so simply by saying right now, and so it is. Thank you.
To